Okay, it's the sun, moon, and earth systems. You've got to know moon phases. We're going to talk about tides. You've got to know about the seasons. You've got to know about eclipses, umbras, penumbras. Yeah, that's right. That's what it is. Okay? So let's get started with this. Let's talk about movements of the earth. Before we get into anything, I want to talk about movements of the earth. Okay? The earth, what does it do when it says the earth goes around the sun? What does it? Revolves around the sun. Earth also rotates. What is the degree or the angle that Earth is tilted when it's rotating? 23.5 degrees. Please write that down. I will ask you this on the test. One of the tests. It's on the, guarantee you it's on the quarter test. Okay. You've got to know how far Earth is tilted. Last year, everybody got it wrong. And not one person got it right. So be the class that gets it right. Okay. 23.5 degrees. This tilt is what gives us the fall. And with the fall comes Halloween, cider, and pumpkins. So if it wasn't for the tilt, we would not have the best season of the year. Okay.
Actually, it's winter.
It's winter?
Yeah, it's winter.
Actually, it's still summer for a couple days. Okay. Now here we go.
The door's still locked.
You should yank him in.
Yank him in.
You wouldn't do that.
Okay. Pass. Thank you. All right. When we talk about precession, this concept of precession kind of might throw you off a little bit. Earth does rotate and it revolves. It orbits the sun. But it also has precession. Now what this is very simple. This 23.5 degrees is not set in stone. It changes. And Earth right now is pointed at the North Star. Does anyone know what the North Star is called?
The North Star.
What is the North Star at the moment?
South Point.
Starts with a P. Perseus is close. It's Polaris. Polaris is currently the North Star. There are other stars out there that used to have been the North Star. Vega used to be the North Star. So what the Earth does is it has this precession where the tilt changes over the course of thousands of years. Thousands and thousands of years. So,
years would be 24 degrees.
yes. Yes. And it goes from, like, I think 22 to 25 degrees in its precession as it's kind of slowly wobbling. I like wobble. It kind of wobbles back and forth. That's the precession. And it wobbles on its tilt. So it's not, yes, the Earth is rotating around the tilt, but the tilt itself is wobbling. That's the precession. Do we have any questions on wobble? Brendan?
Does that mean that the weather can change too?
Yes.
Are we going through recession?
Well, we don't ever stop going through precession. It's constantly, it's like, like a rotation's constantly rotating.
Yeah.
We're constantly wobbling, but it's so slow that that's not what's causing the global warming issues. Or I should say global climate change would be a better way to say it. Brendan?
So I was
Brendan?
going to say, because a couple of years ago when we had that really bad snowstorm, was that
No. Anything that's related to, we had a serious hurricane, we had a really bad snowstorm, that's all variations in normal weather. When you talk about global climate change, it's the Sahara Desert is now a tropical rainforest. Something bigger happens with climate change. Climate is the amount of weather that can happen at a certain area. We live in a temperate zone. We get snowstorms, we get rainstorms, we get dry spells. And that can vary, and that's still normal for weather. Yes?
While it's rotating that way, it's also pretty much like going like that.
think of it more like a wobble, just up and down. Back
But
and-
doesn't
back-
it
just back and forth.
spin around the whole, right? Well, that's on the 2D image, so if you put it in 3D, the whole thing is.
It does, but this is very drastically, this isn't to scale. So you're thinking bigger than it actually is.
Well, yeah, I mean, of course, it's not like boom, but like.
Yeah, so right now we're pointing at the North Star, the wobble will eventually point to Vega. Yes, that will change climates, but that's not something that's not causing climate change now. Just know that the Earth has revolution, rotation, and precession. This is not a big thing. I might not even ask you on the quiz, but I want you to have seen it. Okay, because there's more to science than the standard. The standard is the basic. That's what you have to know. Basically, I get to teach more than just the basic standard. Okay. Okay. Motions of the Earth-Moon system. Okay, now we're going to start talking about the Earth and the Moon. And that's really the bread and butter of what we're going to talk about today, the Earth and the Moon. Okay, Perigee and Apogee. I'm not going to ask you what these are on the quiz or the test, but I want you to know what they are. Here, perigee is when you're close. Apogee is when you're far away. Now, this begs the question that why is the moon not always the same distance from the Earth?
Yes, it is not always the same.
Yeah, it's not always. There's sometimes the moon's further away, sometimes it's closer. So what that means is if you have the Earth here, I really stink at drawing circles. Okay, at some points here, the moon is farther away and sometimes it's near or closer. So the moon, make the moon here. This would be, this would be the perigee, where it's the closest to the Earth, and the apogee is where it's the farthest from the Earth. Okay? Concept is that the moon is not always the exact same distance from Earth. It has an elliptical orbit, the same way the Earth has an elliptical orbit around the sun. Aphelion, perihelion is, notice the pair and the apogee, perigee is about the moon and the Earth. Perihelion, aphelion is dealing with the Earth and the sun. So in the winter time, you guys are looking like you like the winter time. We're actually the closest to the sun in the winter time in the northern hemisphere. Okay? Yeah, kind of crazy. Our seasons do not are not determined by how close we are to the sun. Okay? So, we'll start with that. Let's hit what our next slide is. Phases of the moon.
Yes, sir, it's a full moon. Right?
Okay. It has been waxing, so if it's full moon, that doesn't surprise me. Okay. All right. Where do I want to be? Phases of the moon. There's one more thing I want to talk about. I'm sorry. Go away.
You need a clicker.
I need to hit the right buttons. What I need to do. Okay, right there. There's one more thing that we can talk about. So if we have the Earth here, now does the moon always orbit in one plane?
No.
Yeah, so that, like if this was the sun and this was the Earth, all the planets orbit the sun in one plane. But we're going to make this instead Earth, and this is the moon. Okay, the moon will occasionally orbit the Earth exactly the same way the Earth is orbiting the sun. That's when we get eclipses. But sometimes the moon is like this and orbiting this way. Sometimes it's like this. It does kind of a spinning motion where it's not always in the same plane. It's going all over the place. Brendan? No idea. Look it up. It's in all kinds of moon charts and stuff. Feel free, look it up. Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead. So know that the moon is not always in the same plane in its orbit. It's going all over the place as it's going around. Also, it's not the same distance, right? Sometimes it's farther away, sometimes it's closer, depending on what side of the Earth it's on. Okay? How long does it take the moon to go around the Earth?
24 hours.
Like
Yes,
200 days.
No.
What did you ask? How many?
what is a lunar month? What does it take for the moon to go around the earth?
6 days.
6 days, 25?
A month.
It's something like,
It's close to a month. It's approximately 29 days. So a lunar month would be about 29 days. Okay? Ancient civilizations used to base their calendars off lunar months, which is pretty close to an accurate calendar of going around the sun. Okay. I wanted to make sure I talked about that before I talked about phases. Okay, phases of the moon. Now, when we talk about phases of the moon, this is huge. You have to know the phases. You have to know what's going on during the phases. You will have to replicate the phases. So I'll give you a chart, fill in the chart, name the phases, and draw the phases. So this is where your artistic awesomeness gets to come out.
No.
Okay, so the phases of the moon, the pressures of changes in the moon's appearance during the month. Does the moon always look the same at night?
Yes.
Alright, what'd you find?
the next total lunar eclipse is April 15th, 2014.
Okay, so next April, we'll have a total lunar eclipse. Okay?
It's almost 2014.
It is almost 2014, that's why next April 2014.
No, I know, but I'm saying it's
Okay. Lunar eclipses are actually not super uncommon.
Oh.
We'll talk about why, but today I'm not talking about eclipses because I want to give like a whole day to eclipses. Today I'm just talking about moon phases. The moon doesn't look the same at night, every night. Okay? The moon has been getting brighter and brighter and brighter. You guys told me it was just a full moon, so I'm going to take your word for it. I didn't look outside. But I know that the moon has been waxing, getting bigger, getting more bright, more of it being seen. It's waxing. So the phases of the moon are how the moon waxes and wanes throughout the lunar month. Yeah.
You say it's growing, it's not really actually like growing. It's
Well, the
kind
size of the moon
getting
isn't
closer
growing,
to
but
it.
the amount of the moon that we can see is growing.
Okay.
Okay? So, here we go. Lunar phase is a result of the motion of the moon, blah, blah, blah. What is the light that we see? Does the moon actually shine?
No, it's
Sign.
It's sunlight. Now, this is great. Okay, when we went to the moon, you look at the moon, it's really, really bright. You think it's really light colored, right?
Yeah.
It's not.
It's great.
The moon is a really dark gray material, like a charcoal gray material. But the sun is so bright that the moon still acts practically like a mirror for the sun. So isn't it a good thing that the moon's not a mirror and made of like shiny metallic stuff, or else we'd be like cooking every time the moon went around, because the sun's light would hit us like like a watch beam. You can see a little bit.